Welcome to the episode of Dave's Movie Dailies. It is 16 days after New Year's, and we are having a pretty good New Year's, man. 16 days. I would have thought, look, I look like a hot mess. Um, yeah, nothing big has happened during the course of these. Oh, wait a minute. Half of LA burned down. Yeah. What else is gonna happen during this course of year? Geez, 16 days and we already have half of LA burned down. That's crazy. But yeah, this is not that type of news. I'm gonna talk about new movie. The Lord of the Rings, The War of Rohirrim. I'm hoping I pronounced that right. These Lord of the Ring words are kind of like out there, so yeah, so I saw this movie because it was released in 12/13 of 24 of last year. I saw it a little while ago, but I hadn't been able to go talk about it, and I'm talking about it now. So it was directed by Kenji, I believe his name is Kamiyama, and it was shot or made in the style of an anime. Now, I remember going to the movie. I went to 34th Street in New York to go watch this movie, and I remember watching it, and obviously, it had certain things of the Lord of the Rings, the original trilogy, and the Hobbit, and even the soundtrack was pretty cool. And I saw that the people who when they premiered this movie, a lot of the people from the original trilogy, from the Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, Two Towers, and Return of the King, and even I believe some of the people from the Hobbit ended up going to go see this movie, and it was like the next big thing. I know Andy Serkis was there and all this other stuff, so it it was pretty cool to see all of them coming back, and I know now they're doing like another Lord of the Rings. They actually decided to continue the Tolkien stories, so that's pretty cool. I mean, from what I understand, the Lord of the Rings, the show bombed horribly, but it was during an era where everything was so woke. I mean, a lot of people don't like that word woke, and it's taken out of context because originally it started for something else, but then it became something else. But yeah, it became very woke. And I mean, I still haven't seen the second season. I kind of enjoyed the first season, but it's not as big and it wasn't as good as was it Game of Thrones, the prequel series, the House of Dragon. Those shows were so good. They should have been just as much. I mean, they invested so much money on this show, so it should have been just as good as House of Dragon. But unfortunately, no. So this story tells the story of Helm Hammerhand, who is the ninth king of Rohan, and the story goes between him and the Dunlendings. The Dunlendings, I believe that's how you pronounce it. Again, it's another J.R. Tolkien word, and it's sometimes hard to pronounce. So yeah, J.R. Tolkien paints Helm as a grim and determined figure. His story is grounded in defiance and sacrifice. His story comes to surface through the tales told through stories of the Lord of the Rings in very minimal lines of literature. So if you're a fan of the Lord of the Rings stories, you're probably right. See, the thing is that there's more than just the Fellowship of the Ring, the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring, the Lord of the Rings, the Two Towers, Lord of the Rings, the Return of the King, and the Hobbit. There's a crap load of Middle Earth stories. So in some of those stories, they have only a few what's it called, paragraphs, and it tells the story of Helm's Hammerhand. Although these very few paragraphs portray a very hopeless time in the time of Rohan, he ruled during a time where tensions rose with the Dunlendings. So the Dunlendings are a set of people who are kind of like, it's like the Montagues and the Capulets in the Lord and in Romeo and Juliet. The Montagues and the Capulets, they're opposing forces who have a lot of money, who have a lot of power. So the only way, but in Romeo and Juliet, they don't see this, this feud coming to terms by marrying their kids. As a matter of fact, the kids have to get married behind everybody's back in order to be happy, or whatever the case. That's how Romeo and Juliet was. And here they think that by joining the Hera, who is that's the name in the book. I'm pretty sure that it says that she was unnamed, but in the movie, she's known as Hera, and the Duelingdon's Fracker, the king, his name, what I think is the king, or he's the leader of the Duelingdons. His name is Fracker. He wants to get marry his son Wolf to Helm's daughter, Hera, and he proposes this marriage, and he thinks that'll bring the kingdoms together or whatever. But Helm does not trust it. Sorry, I'm moving the camera around. Helm does not trust it. He actually believes that it's he's just trying to weasel his way to get his throne. So Helm was the ninth. Obviously, he was the ninth, and this was back in the time of, I believe it was 2754. He Frecker proposes a marriage, an arranged marriage to both his son and daughter. Helm mistrusts Frecker's intentions, so they get into a scuffle of words, and then they get into like heavy argument, and they say, "Oh, let's go outside and settle this man to man. Let's fight." So as they get ready to fight, what's his name? Helm ends up punching him one time and kills him. That's how he gets the name Hammerhand. He ends up killing him, and his son Wolf gets really pissed off, and he says, "I vow to kill you. I'm gonna get, I'm gonna get my revenge on you." By the way, guys, if you don't want any spoilers, you got 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to stop this and watch the movie. I'm pretty sure it's out of the theaters by now. I believe Prime Video, you can rent it there, or Fandango, and watch it and then come back to this. But yeah, they get into a scuffle of words. He ends up punching him in the face, ends up killing him. Wolf vows vengeance, and he just wants to kill him. Now, Wolf ends up waiting 4 years in order to exact his vengeance. But he ends up accumulating a massive army. So he ends up getting all of the Duelendings and their forces, plus all of Gondor's enemies, and they pretty much ransack all of Rohan. They get taken under siege. So at this point, what's his name? Helm and his forces, they are forced to go into to pretty much hide. But Helm ends up becoming kind of like a wraith type figure, and he ends up Hornsburg was where they retreated to, and he ends up becoming this snowy type, wraith type, hauntingly figure, because he comes out at night because there's this giant storm, this snowstorm, and hunger is literally killing both the opposing and the defensive side. So both Helm's army and both Wolf's army are literally suffering because of this blizzard, and they have no food. But at that same time, Helm has this like beast of a strength, and he ends up going and murders and kills all these people in the most grotesque type of way. Helm he ends up dying in the midst of a blizzard, and he like literally stood there, froze to death in this winter freezing snow, killed as many as he could, and he might have died, but his name like echoed through time, and at one point Holmesburg ended up being renamed Helm's Deep. And if you actually watch the Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, and Two Towers, and Return of the King, you actually know what Helm's Deep is, because they have a battle in Helm's Deep. So that's pretty much the whole story. Obviously, it deals more with his daughter Hera, and obviously Hera and her brothers and her cousin, they continue the story from there. The battle gets more deep. Obviously, somebody wins. There's cameo appearances from characters from the original movies. I don't want to get more into that. I already spoiled a hell of a lot of it by giving you the backstory of Helm's Hammerhand. But the movie, to me, I went to go watch it. From a 1 to 10, I gave it a. Wasn't my favorite. I give it a 5. It was great animation. Story was good, but it doesn't. To me, it didn't feel like it furthered the story of the Lord of the Rings, and it just gave you a little bit of a background of how Helm's Deep became, which is where they had the final battle. But yeah, if you want to watch it again, if you're into anime, I'm pretty sure you can find it on Prime Video, or you can probably rent it. But yeah, I give it a 5. But yeah, that's Lord of the Rings War of Rohirrim. Stay tuned for tomorrow. I got another movie that I want to talk about.